Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to today's Anti-Chaos with BB King, Finding Secrets with JavaScript Console. It's an absolute pleasure to have you with us, BB, today. We love having you share your knowledge with us. I'm excited for it. So I'm going to head to the backstage and I'm going to let you get started. And when there's about 10 minutes or so left, I'll come back. We'll do some Q&A. I'll announce the CTF and we'll take it from there. So good luck and have fun.
Good deal. Thank you. Appreciate it. Yeah, the CTF. So I think the last webcast I did, I had a lab for folks, and we got a CTF for this one too. So it's very hands-on. I'm a big believer in hands-on. I don't think you learn anything really unless you get your hands on things. You can learn a little bit by listening, but to really solidify it, you got to get your hands on stuff. So my name is BB. I'm a pen tester at Black Hills Infosec. I'm in my 10th year at BHIS. I've been pen testing web apps since 2008, though. I think I was there when Burp Suite first came out. I remember the first time I bought Burp Suite. I think it cost $75 for the year. It was amazing. A lot of things have changed in the industry since then, but a lot of stuff still the same. So you can find me online as BB Hacking, and I got a link to my instructor page on the anti-siphon training site, because I also teach. I love teaching stuff. I've got 4 classes. I got 2 web app pen testing classes, a reporting class, and a workshop on Burp Suite. So if you're not familiar with Burp Suite, try to get you up to speed on how to use that. I'm teaching next in Denver in February. You can register for that at wildwesthackinfest.com if you think you get anything useful out of this discussion. And if you don't, then maybe don't come. Maybe don't give me another chance. I want you to play along in this. This is very, very hands-on. It's as hands-on as you want it to be. You don't have to play along, but I invite you to play along. Visit a site of your choice in the browser of your choice. Example.com is a great place to use for this one in particular, but in general. It's actually defined in RFC 6761 as a place to be used for examples. And the nice thing about it is that there's almost no content there. If you try to follow along with what we're going to do here in this talk, at a busy site like a news site or a shopping site or something, there's lots of stuff going on those sites. Even while you're just sitting there, there's lots of requests going back and forth. And so the console that we're going to be in might get kind of crowded if you're on one of those sites. So example.com is great. blackhillsinfosec.com is great. Just pick a site. We're not going to do any harm. We're just going to look at things. So find one of those, open up the console by tapping F12 on your keyboard, and play in there as we go. I think you'll learn a lot more if you play as we go. And if you miss something, it's all being recorded, so you can come back and catch up on that. The best thing I could hope for you is that you would get so distracted by something in the console while I'm talking that you would just totally tune out the whole rest of the conversation and explore that, and then come back later for the recording. So when you open up developer tools, a couple of things we'll do is you might be pasting commands into the JavaScript console, and the browsers, they try to protect you, which is one of their primary jobs, is to try to protect you and keep you safe while you're doing stuff in your browser. So by default, they won't let you. If you open up the console and you type Control V, it's going to say, no, scam warning, because people will try to trick people into pasting stuff into their JavaScript console to do bad things to them. So you have to actually enable that. And you enable that by typing the words allow pasting into the console. And as soon as you've typed them, it's okay. You don't have to hit enter. If you do hit enter, you might get a message, you might get a warning about something here. So here I've got allow pasting and I hit enter, and I got uncaught syntax error, unexpected token, identifier, and then it says learn more. I point this out because you might see the same thing. But also in Firefox in particular, there's this learn more link shows up everywhere. And I encourage you very strongly, click on it. Anytime you see it and you don't automatically understand exactly what it's talking about, click on it. You'll learn something. You'll get more depth on something you think you already understand. You might get an overview of something you don't understand. It's a good first step in troubleshooting for what we're going to do in the conversation here today. So click on learn more and you might learn more. It's right there. It's right there in the name. But first, before we start typing stuff, let's do a little bit about JavaScript. So I have strong opinions about artificial intelligence in general and large language models and using them to communicate specifically. I think it's a mistake. I think most times when people use an LLM to create something they're going to use to communicate with other humans, I think it's a mistake. Communication is something that happens person to person. So if your initiation of that communication doesn't come from you, it can be kind of hard to recover, hard to have a real actual conversation there. But AI is awesome. It does cool, fun things. So I'm not saying don't use it. I'm saying use it judiciously. And at this point in the evolution of AI, I think it's helpful when people call out when it's been used. So I will do this. I got that little Smokey Bear guy there that perplexity.ai drew for me yesterday. And I put that on the slides where I have used AI. And mostly it's just for funny things like this little AI summary. But first is a common phrase used to say you should have coffee. Is that what that really means? I don't know if that's what that means. Anyway, let's talk a little bit about JavaScript. One of the mistakes I've made as a teacher sometimes is assuming too much common knowledge with the students. And so we're going to take a step back here and talk about a little bit JavaScript, how it is, how it works, just what do you type? Where does the semicolon go? Where do the braces go? That sort of thing. So that when we actually use it a little bit later in the discussion to do stuff, you'll have a better understanding of why we're doing it that way. And if you get one of those learn more links, you might have a better chance to do your troubleshooting. So JavaScript, like most programming languages, is made up of statements. A statement is, I found this definition somewhere, one or more lines that represent an action. But I think of a statement as something that ends with a semicolon. Mostly. So it's basically one line of complete JavaScript. Something is a statement. And in JavaScript, you can leave the semicolon off the end of your lines in most cases, but don't do that. I'm a big fan of not taking the clues, not taking the kindnesses from your compilers, but to do things the way it's meant to be done. So that those assumptions that the compiler is going to make when it fills in the blanks for you don't come back to bite you later. So this is things like you want to put braces around all of your multiple statements. If you have an if, you might not need braces if it's just a one-line thing after the if statement. Add the braces. Be explicit about what you want, and you're less likely to have confusing errors pop up. What else about JavaScript? JavaScript is it's case sensitive. That's important to know. It's also is white space insensitive, but that's not entirely true. You do need spaces between things. But what this means is that when you need one space, you can have two spaces or 1,000 spaces, and that's okay. It's not like Python, where the spacing determines the logic and structure of the program. It's just it doesn't care how many spaces you have. That's what it is. It uses semicolons to end the statements rather than like a new line and indentation like Python does. So in the little box here are a couple of statements that show you what a statement looks like. Next up is control flow. I love words. I love thinking about what words mean. One of my favorite things to do is to intentionally misinterpret signs, like at grocery stores and on the roads. I like language, and it's a fun way just to play with language in my own head. Signs are often badly written, but not. They're written briefly. The point of a sign is to get an idea across in as few words as possible. So sometimes it's easy to misinterpret them just for fun, but you're not going to misinterpret it accidentally. Anyway, control flow, shouldn't this be flow control? Controlling the flow of the application? Actually, it works either way, I think. I go back and forth whether this should be control flow or flow control. Anyway, this is what controls the logic and the execution path that the browser is going to take when it's executing your JavaScript. We have conditionals. So a conditional is like an if statement, and in JavaScript, it's if then. But the word then doesn't show up. Some languages, there's an explicit word then that shows up, but in JavaScript, there is not. So the simplest if statement is the one on the top left here. If true, then we're going to write yup to the console. And that's what we have here. You can have an else block on there if you want it. And that would just go in place after the closing section of the first if thing. We have comparison operators. You'll use these all the time. JavaScript is interesting in the way it uses the equals sign. The equal sign can show up 1, 2, or 3 times. It means different things each time. If it shows up once, that's the assignment operator. It's not equality, it's the assignment operator. One thing I learned is that if you read a single equal sign to yourself as the word gets, that will help you understand. So like x equals 1, no, x gets 1. So the x has now the value of 1, or, first name equals BB. No, first name gets BB. So the thing I'm saying, first name, now has that value. So if you think of it as gets and rather than equals, it's a little bit easier to keep those things correct. We want to use equals, though, to see if things are equivalent. So instead of the assignment operator, we use 2 equal signs. This is what JavaScript calls loose equality. And this is determining, do these 2 things have the same value? These things on the left-hand side and the things on the right-hand side, do they evaluate to the same thing, the same value, the same string, the same whatever? If we want to know if they're actually the exact same thing, though, there's a different operator. There's 3 equal signs. 3 equals, we're just going to keep adding equals this together. 3 equals is what they call strict equality. So this is, are these 2 things the same object? Which is, are these 2 things, the 2 names for one thing? If I change one of these things, does the other one change also? When that's true, strict equality is true, and you want the 3 equals. And then there's the bang, the exclamation point. This is the negation symbol used in lots of things to negate. This can negate the equalities. So the double equals or triple equals, bang will negate those things. And then we have greater than and less than, greater than or equal to, less than or equal to. Those are what you remember from geometry class. And there's no negating those. So if you want to say not greater than, you would say less than or equal to. You don't need to negate them. But there's something else there that does the opposite of all of those guys. If you've been around the web for any amount of time, you've seen how people beat up on JavaScript. People love to just tear it apart and talk about how horrible it is, and it's a terrible language, and it's so unclear. It's loosely typed. There's all kinds of things that can go wrong accidentally. It's just untenable. It's not a good language. I'm not here to make value statements. JavaScript is out there, and it's used in every web browser, and now it's used all over the place. It's used in places it was never intended to be used. I can't change that. So I'm just going to accept that. But I think I want to show you a couple of things, a couple of reasons why people have that opinion about JavaScript, because they're not unfounded. It is a little confusing. It can be a little confusing. And some of these can lead to interesting security problems. So if you want to beat up on JavaScript with your friends over lunch, here's the things you want to talk about. You want to talk about truthy and falsy. That's what they say. True and false are like actual words, but truthy and falsy are actual words we use to talk about JavaScript. So this is formalized truthiness. There was some comedian, I can't remember who it was, came up with the idea of truthiness, that something is, feels true, so it must be true. It's not actually true, but it's kind of true. It's truthy. That is formalized in JavaScript. And one thing that it uses for truthiness and falsiness, rather than actual true and false, is type coercion. So we can, the language, the compiler can coerce a value into a different kind of value. So it'll coerce the left-hand side and the right-hand side into a common data type when that's possible. And then it compares those results. So here are some examples on this screen, some examples of those. So the first one there on the top left, 2 gets the number 2 as a string. So 2 equals 2 in quotes. That means the 2 is a string there. And then I'm going to make another variable called also 2, and I'm going to give this the number 2 without quotes around it. And then I'm going to compare them. And I'm going to say, is that first 2 equal to? Is it equivalent to? Does it have the same value as the second one? It does. So this shows you that if you give JavaScript a number as a string, which is what we're doing when we put quotes around it, in a context where it could be interpreted as a number, then JavaScript's going to interpret it as a number. So they're both 2, but if I use the triple equals now, they're not the same. They're not the same object. These are 2 different variables. They happen to have the same value, but they're different things. So triple equals means if I change one of these, does the other one change? No, it doesn't. So that part is false. Now, this is where it gets fun to play with. So here in the center there, 2 in quotes equals 22 minus 20. Whoops, that was a mistake. I typed that wrong. This is, I'm trying to do a comparison, but I accidentally did the assignment operator. So I wasn't thinking 2 gets 22 minus 20. I was thinking is 2 equal to. So it's a mistake that you're going to make. But look, there's learn more there. There's a learn more link. And it says invalid assignment on the left-hand side. Once you're familiar with it, that might tell you all you need to know. But if it's new, click learn more and you'll see. What I meant to do was use the double equal sign. So what I'm saying is the string 2 equal to 22 minus 20? 22 minus 20 is 2. And the string 2 here gets coerced. It gets interpreted as an integer. And now we're comparing the number 2 to the number 2, and that's true. Let's do one more. What if we subtract 20 as a string from 20 as a string? Do we still get 2? Yes, we do. What if we put the whole thing in quotes? 2 in quotes, is that the same as the string 22 minus 20 in quotes? No, it's not. Because now we're looking at a string. There's no way to interpret the character 22 space minus space 20 as a number. Didn't we just do that? We did just do that. This is why we make fun of it. That's the joke right there. That's the joke about JavaScript. I'm going to show you some more special cases of this before we continue. So truthiness type A. This is going to be strict equality. This is actual truth. Are these things? This is Boolean logic. I think of this as compare these things as found. So there's no coercion. You're not going to try to interpret it in a given context. It is what it is. So this is asking, are these the same item? And here's the truth table that Dory has put together. Fantastic reference for this stuff. Whenever you're testing or you want to find some details, see what's actually going on here. Very nice, clear summary. Look, it's a nice diagonal line. It only lines up where the same thing is on the row and the same thing is in the column. It's beautiful. Actual truth. I love actual truth. This is good. Now, truthiness type B, this is loose equality. This is the 2 equalses. This is as interpreted. So this is allowing coercion to happen. And this is the question, do these have the same value? And what do you mean by value? I mean, well, could they be forced? Could they be coerced into having the same kind of a value? And then if they did, would the values evaluate to the same thing? Look at all the extra boxes. There's so much more going on here. See, it was so simple. It was so straightforward and obvious and clear. And I could just remember this. And then JavaScript does this. And there's a reason for every single one of these. It's fun to laugh at, but there's a good reason for every single one of these. And it helps to understand them. It's fun to make the jokes, do it all day long, but understand why it's doing what it's doing. And in most cases, it's doing the right thing. There are some places where you can abuse this to get different functionality, to get different evaluation results than you might expect. But they're relatively rare. And it's a theoretical thing. It's just kind of fun to mess with. So then apart from that, what about if you use these as an if statement? So an if statement is if, and then there's parentheses. And inside the parentheses is evaluated. And if that evaluates to true, then the if is true, and the block inside the if thing is going to execute. If it evaluates to false, then it's false. And what's in that first block won't execute. If there's an else block, that's going to execute next. If there's not one, it's just going to go on. So a little bit different, but there's still coercion going on here. And it doesn't fit in the table quite so neatly, but Dory knew that. So Dory came up with this version. Lots of things evaluate to true. True is true. False is not true. 1 is true. -1 is true. 0 in quotes is true, but 0 not in quotes is false. Interesting. Null is false. Infinity is true, whether it's positive or negative. An empty array is true. Well, how is an empty array true? I don't know. That's what they came up with. That seems to make the most sense. It actually does seem to make the most sense. If you're going to interpret this as a Boolean value, these are kind of the values that make the most sense to do. And then we have some comparison-ish operators. I focus on these because when I'm doing a test and I'm trying to find secrets, I'm trying to find interesting JavaScript variables and values and objects in a web application, I'm going to be looking for things. And the only way to get a subset is to exclude things, right? If I want to just show me all of the things that exist in the JavaScript landscape here, that's going to be more than I can possibly process. So I'm trying to pull out things that look like they might be interesting. So here's a couple of comparison-ish operators in here. That's my term. You'll never find that defined in the JavaScript spec anywhere. But top left here, so I'm going to define a variable called myword, and it's going to get the string homeowner. And then I'm going to define an array called currencies, and it's going to get USD, EUR, and YEN. So for 3 different currencies that are used somewhere in the world. And then go down here, myword.index of meow is going to say, look at the string called myword, and does the word meow appear in that string? And if so, where? And then you see that executing, and it says the answer is yes, it does appear there. It starts in position 2. Meow is in homeowner. It's one of my favorite things about English is that the word meow is in the word homeowner. And then currencies, I want to know, is yen in your list of currencies? Because yen is a valid currency, and I just want to make sure, do you have the right list? And this just gives a true or false. It doesn't say anything else. Just, is yen included in your array that's called currencies? True, it is. Yes, awesome. So not really a comparison, but it's still a comparison, right? It's helpful to think this way. What I'm getting into a little bit here is that I'm not teaching you how to be a JavaScript developer. I don't know how to be a JavaScript developer. I am not a JavaScript developer. They would laugh at me. They would not accept my code as a pull request. I just want things that are going to work in the moment. I don't need things that are going to be maintainable or well-formed or following the good coding guidelines. I just need stuff that's going to work. And that's what I'm trying to show you here. So I got to show you a quick AI thing. Whenever you're putting together a presentation in PowerPoint, on the right there, it gives you options like, oh, would you like to present it this way instead? Would you like to have flowers around it? Would you like to have little circles and squares? Or are you okay with just the words you got there? This is what it offered me for this slide. I want to show you what it offered me. This is what it offered. Now, look at this. It's so much fun. We start with homeowner. Okay, there's a picture of a house with a tree. All right, that's not the homeowner, but it's a house. Totally fine. I get it. That's reasonable. And then for currencies, it says, oh, you've got yen in your list of currencies. Let's use the yen symbol for that. All right, I'm with you so far. And then it says, is the word meow in one of those strings? And it gives me a duck. I don't know why it gave me a duck for meow. That's my favorite part of this slide. But coming up in a close second is this last one. When I ask about the word yen, is yen in the currencies? Now it gives me the US dollar sign. What is it thinking? Everything about this is correct except the duck. But it's funny. I love it. I love it. You got to play with these things. You got to find humor where it presents itself. I laugh. You can laugh at anything you want as long as you're laughing to yourself. Some things you can laugh out loud about. Check your audience first. This one I think is safe. Ducks do not say meow, not in any language. Anyhow, next up is something called prototypal inheritance. Prototypal inheritance. It's the inheritance of a prototype. I don't know how to say that first word, but this is what JavaScript uses. The JavaScript people use this phrase, prototypal. I'm going to say prototypal inheritance. And what this means is that a value inherits the properties and methods of its constructor, even if it hasn't been constructed yet. So a constructor is an object-oriented programming term. It just means how do you build an object? And when you build an object, that thing that you've built takes on all the properties of that object. So the examples they always use, oh, you're building a car object. So the car object is going to have 4 wheels, and it's going to have a door, and it's going to have an engine, and it's going to have a start method, those types of things. So that's what a constructor does. But JavaScript will let you use those even if you haven't constructed anything yet. So the string class, which governs strings, has a method called toUpperCase, which does what you think it's going to do. And you can call this on a string literal. Doesn't have to be a string variable, a string literal that doesn't have any existence until the statement in which you type it. So this password 01.toUpperCase returns that string all uppercased. This is a useful thing. You'll use this over and over again in the code that you write to examine things in your web applications. This is how you might use that. When you're comparing strings, my gosh, this just happened to me yesterday in a different application. Something failed because I was doing a case-sensitive comparison and didn't realize it. So whenever you're comparisоning strings, a good way to do that that's going to be more robust, more resistant to errors, is to convert the case of both strings before you do the comparison. You can do toLowercase or toUppercase, do whatever you want, but make them in the same form before you do the comparison. So here, interesting word with strange capitalization in lowercase is the same as interesting word all capitalized. Handy to see that. And also for arrays, the the includes method will tell you whether that value exists in your array or not. Remember yen? Remember the quacking cow, quacking cat? Same thing. You don't have to create a variable first. You can use the actual thing as the variable, as the object name, and you can call those functions on it. That's all I'm going to talk about. I think about the language. Not entirely. That's a good introduction to the basics of the language. Now, looping is where it's at. If you're not doing scripts for your tests or for your data analysis, even if you're not doing a pen test, if you're not pen testing, if you're building things, write some scripts. And loops is where it's at. Loops are going to give you the most bang for your buck. They're the best way to get started in this sort of stuff. Super fast reinforcement that, holy cow, I did 1,000 things in the time it would have taken me to do 2 of them. Game changer. So if you need something to practice with on these, you're getting started, loops. Look for loops. Make yourself make loops anywhere you can. You'll be glad that you did. Here's a few ways to loop in JavaScript. So you can process a list like your grandpa did. This is how programming languages have done for loops since the beginning. And I have list in quotes there for a reason. If you're familiar with Python or other languages, you might know why I have that in quotes. If you're not, forget it. The quotes are there to satisfy that other group of people. It's not necessarily a list. It's a list-like thing. Anyway. This is how this works. It's for, instead of like if, we have for, and then in parentheses, we've got the starting condition, the stopping condition, and the step. This is how I refer to these things. So this is going to be like on the left here. So for I equals 0, that's what we're starting at. We're creating a variable called I. This is the loop indexing variable. And I is the convention. That's what we normally use for this. And then we're going to stop when I is less, we're going to keep going until I is less than 9. I'm sorry, while I is less than 9. And then at the end, we're going to increment I by 1 with each step through the loop. And then we're going to concatenate, not add. It's a plus, right? But it's not math. It's overloaded. It's going to, because it's treated as a string, because we started with it as a string, we're going to add that character, not the value, add the character to it. So by the time this loop is done, we're going to have a string that is 0 through 8. You can use this for almost any loop you want to write. The only complicating factor here is you have to know what the stop condition is. So if you're doing this with an array, the common idiom for this is for that middle thing, for the stop, you're going to go for I is less than array.length. So you're going to keep going until you've exceeded the length of the array. And not every language gives you something so simple as array.length to figure out how long the array is. So it can get kind of clunky to do other things with this particular syntax that your grandpa did, that Carnegie and Ritchie did in the C programming language forever ago. Every language inherits from C. Every language owes a debt to Dennis Ritchie and Kernighan. What's his first name? Kernighan and Ritchie. K&R, the K&R book. That's your prototypical for loop. Now in JavaScript, we've got other ways of doing that are a little bit more convenient. So here's one. You can process arrays without indexing them. So without doing that square bracket index into the array, you can use this word of for variable of iterable. What's an iterable? I asked AI what an iterable was, and it told me it's something you can loop over one element at a time, like in a for loop. That's true. I'm not sure it's any I'm not sure it helps explain what an iterable is exactly. It just gives an example of them, but maybe that's enough, right? You can kind of follow that. So this is the loop that I use in JavaScript whenever I'm iterating over something that's not just numbers, or I don't want to do something a number of times. I'm trying to process a grouping of something, which is usually going to be an array. For element of array, and then in the braces, you do whatever you're going to do with that. So if your array is A, B, and C, and you just want to log each of those elements to the console, this is something you can do for that. You don't have to worry about that annoying syntax of how do you dereference a particular element of an array. It's what the Perl people call syntactic sugar. It does the same thing, but it might be a way that that's more comfortable for you. Makes it easier to read, easier to write, whatever. You're not doing anything here you couldn't do with the other kind. It's just more convenient. So now we're going to use some of those things. And here's where, if you're on example.com, this won't do anything because there's no links there. But if you're on a site that does have links on it, this is a script that I use on almost every single test. It's not going to find secrets. It's going to find things I've overlooked. So when I'm doing a web app pen test, the first thing I do is try to understand how the application is built. What does it let me do? What's in there? When I click on all the stuff, what are the functions that are available to me? And when I think I've done enough, I'll run this script on whatever page that I'm on. And what it does, hopefully this makes sense if you just read this, even if style sheets and JavaScript are new to you, hopefully it makes sense what's going on here. I'm going to go through everything in the document.links collection, which is all of the links in the document. And I'm going to apply a style that is a 5-pixel solid blue border. This is just going to draw a blue box around everything that's a link. And this is going to help me make sure that I visited all of those links. And what invariably happens to me here is the footer of the page just lights up in blue. And I forgot to look at the footer of the page because I'm so conditioned by my normal use of the web that there's nothing interesting in the footers that I have to use tricks like this to overcome that on a pen test to make sure I'm getting good coverage. So this won't show you links you didn't visit. It's just going to show you links that exist. Now, there is another style you could use that would show unvisited links as a different color. So if you just wanted to see the ones you didn't visit, you could do that as well if you looked up how to do that in the CSS specification. Maybe a little exercise for after class. So that's finding links. What if you want to collect all of the links? This is one that I'll use when I'm trying to make sure that I've got the right scope for the web app that I'm testing. A common problem we have when we're testing web apps, especially in a consulting role like I am, where I don't have an ongoing relationship with the development team, I don't know the application until I see it. During the ROE call, when we're talking about what are the rules of engagement, how do you want me to test this, what's in scope, what's not in scope, I'm often not talking to like the lead developer. I'm talking to a project manager or somebody who's not intimately familiar with the application, which is fine for most things. But sometimes we'll end up with an agreement that, oh, we're going to test Wikipedia. And we want to test the English version of Wikipedia. So the scope is everything on en.wikipedia.org. Maybe go there right now while you're doing this, and you can see this one in action. Here, I'm going to walk through the list of the document links. And if the link href, which is where that link points, again, HTML, that would be the href value of that parameter. If the index of the phrase en.wikipedia is equal to -1, this is going to take the href of each link, and it's going to look in that string, which should be a URL. And it's going to look to see if en.wikipedia appears in that list. I'm sorry, in that bit of text. And if it does, the index of method returns the starting position of that string. If that string is not found, it returns -1. So -1 is like a magic value here. It means that phrase doesn't appear in this link, in this string that you're giving me. So if that's the case, if there's a link and en.wikipedia does not appear in it, I'm going to log that to the console. So I'm going to have in the console, I'm going to have a list of URLs. And all of those URLs will be ones that do not contain en.wikipedia. Now, if you're doing this on Wikipedia right now, you're going to see there are 1,000 of them, a lot. There's a large number of them that don't align with this domain name. So a reasonable question would be, for your contact at Wikipedia who's paying you to do this work, would be to say, hey, there's a lot of links on that en.wikipedia.org page that go to a different domain, different top-level domain or different third-level domain. Do you want me to test those? And if you ask the project manager that question, just as I said it, the project manager is going to go, I don't know. Or they're going to say, yes, please do. Or they're going to say, no, don't do that. They'll be sure of their answer, but they won't know what you're actually asking. If you give them this list, now they'll know, they'll say, oh my goodness, there are a lot of links that go to different places. I'm not sure what all those mean. Let me ask my developers. And then they have a list and they can say, hey, developers, what about all this stuff? Are we testing that? And now you get a clear answer based on facts. It's wonderful. One thing to point out here, if you weren't following along, which is fine, if you weren't following along, something that becomes apparent right now, if you're looking at this and you're familiar with other programming languages, is that in JavaScript, there is no standard out. There is no standard error. There's not even a standard in. In most programming languages or shells, those are things. Standard in is where the input comes from. Standard out is what you see when it runs. JavaScript doesn't have those. It has the console, which is kind of like standard out. It's not at all like standard out, but it's a way to get information out of your programs. And then if you want to use that information somewhere else, you're not on the command line. You can't just pipe this to a file or something, right? But you can right click and copy. You can copy and paste out of the console and do whatever you want with what you find there. This is one of the best things about JavaScript, is that you don't have to use it for everything. you can use JavaScript to find the information you want, and then you can copy and paste it out of the console into whatever other tool you like. Just a text editor, and you can do find and replace in your text editor, or you can paste it into a Python script or a Rust script or a Golang script, whatever your language is that you like to use. Learn enough JavaScript to access the information you want, and then you can use whatever other language you want to process it. Again, because you're not going to be a JavaScript developer. That's not the goal. Your goal is just to be conversant enough that you can get what you want, and then run from there. So here's one more console trick before I give you one that's homework. We're going to collect identifiers. So I want to make a list of each image's URL. So this page that I'm on here is Flickr's Explore page, which is just a list. It's a presentation of whatever images the Flickr people decided were interesting for this day. It used to be called the Interesting page. Now it's called Explore. So I'm going to walk through the document images object, and I'm going to collect them first here. Instead of just dumping them straight to the console, I'm going to collect them in an array. Maybe I want to do something with them later on. So I define an empty array called picture URLs, pick URLs. And then as I go through each one that's in the document, I push the pick.source, which is the URL that that image has come from, to that array. And then when I'm done, the next one runs console.log, dumps that array. And this is what I get on the right. Flickr is a little bit different today. It doesn't do this exactly the same way as it does right now, but this is a better illustration. So what do we see here? We see there are domains. They're all something.staticflickr.com. We have combo at the beginning, and then we have farm3, farm1, farm8. Okay, so we've learned something. We've learned that Flickr stores content to display to users on multiple domains, and at least some of those domains follow the pattern of farm and then an integer number. And if you look in this list, you'll see that I don't see the number 7 or the number 2, but I'm going to guess that's just happenstance. Those are going to show up somewhere. So I think there's probably a system called farm2, and there's probably a system called farm8, farm9. There's farm8. I can see it right there. But maybe there's a system called farm12 that they haven't rolled into production yet. It's out there, but it hasn't been configured yet. So just by noticing this pattern, I'm making a list of things I can guess. I might be able to discover hidden content or things that aren't intended to be published yet, just by noticing these patterns. Next up, after the staticflickr.com, you see the next thing is an integer in most cases. It's a 3 or 4 digit integer, and then buddy icons. So I'm going to guess that integer might be some sort of a user identifier, because buddy icons, that sounds like it's a person related to somebody's account. So maybe those are user identifiers. I'm going to collect those too. If I ever see those used as input somewhere to get content, to modify content, I'm going to have a list of other valid values that I can plug in there to see how the application handles those. And now, like I was saying before, you don't have to pull those out with JavaScript. You can copy and paste this into a text editor, and you can just find and replace to remove https://. And then you have a list of things that start with farm, whatever. However you want to process this information, all you need is enough JavaScript to get it out of the browser, and then you can do whatever you want. If you do it in JavaScript in the console, that might feel a little cooler. You might feel a little bit more competent if you do it that way. And honestly, I would be more impressed if you did too. But you don't want to, your job's not to impress me, right? It might be a waste of time. Maybe the time you took to learn how to do it in JavaScript was wasted because you could have done it easily in Python. Whatever, do what works for you, but enough JavaScript to help get you started. Now, your turn. This is homework. So on whatever site you're on, or whatever site you want to go on later, make a list of all the URLs that the current page pulls scripts from. So what is that going to look like? How are you going to do that? I'm not going to give you the answer here. I want you to puzzle this one through a little bit. Using what we just showed on the previous couple of slides, you can make some guesses as to how you might get a list of all the scripts that are pulled into the page. Do that as some homework. Not part of the CTF, but some homework. There's one more loop, one more of these for loops that we have in JavaScript. So this is for in. We did for of. Now this one is for in, and this is used for objects. So not lists, not iterables, but objects. And objects are a little bit more complicated than other things we've looked at so far. But it's the same kind of thing. It's the on the left here, var name. This is the name you're going to use in your loop to refer to whatever property has been iterated to. And then object is the name of the object that you're iterating over. And then the syntax for logging that stuff is starting to look a little bit ugly, but that's how that works. And a use for this is a particular use for this, and you're going to love this one. I use this on every test also. This is from my friend Sean Verity, who tests with me at BHIS. He's got this little loop here, and you're going to want to copy and paste this loop. Keep this somewhere in your notes so it's available to you. This is going to go through all the properties in the window. Window is the DOM. Window is the top level object that is what you're looking at. And it's going to say if the type of this property is a string, then we're going to log the property's name and the value of the property in the console. So why is this interesting? This is interesting because if there's a variable, a developer chose to have that variable, and that variable is going to contain some information, and that's going to be information that was important to the developer for some reason. For the application needed that value for some reason. And you're going to want to know about those things. What are those things? Some of them might be sensitive. Some of them might not be. A bunch of them are just going to be just for how something is displayed. It's going to be a style sheet. It's going to be a user preference, something like that. But every once in a while, you're going to find like there's a password here, or there's an API key here. There are some things that are obviously interesting from a security perspective. So here I went to the BHIS website and there wasn't anything interesting. So I added something called password. You can do that. You have same origin access when you're in that console. So I added a variable called password. And then I ran Sean's little script here and it found it for me. And it dumped it down for me. It said, there's a variable called password and here's the value for that variable. Holy cow. You don't even have to know it exists. This is going to go through every possible variable and just give them to you. Kind of neat. So now that we've got all that, now we're going to apply this more in practical ways. What are we going to do? So if you're looking for secrets in a web application, you might try to read stuff from sensitive areas like the cookies. The object that has the cookies in it is called document.cookie. And if you just type that, like I could have typed console.log document.cookie, but because of the way the console works, you don't have to do console.log. The console is going to show you the result of whatever statement has just been evaluated. So document.cookie gets evaluated, which means that it reads the cookie out of the cookie jar and it gives that to you. And here we have the cookie, but if you look closely, you'll see this cookie has 4 cookies. There's one called GOIP, and there's one called network probe limit. There's one called VEECID, and there's one called EN-WIKI-MW user session ID. What I want you to see here is that even though we have cookies, it's one cookie. We have one string. If I want to index into this and I want to see which particular cookie I want to look at, I might try array indexing, which is the square brackets with a number in it. So document.cookie 0, I'm thinking maybe this is going to get me the GOIP thing. No, it actually gives me the G. It gives me the first letter. I'm indexing into a string. Okay, maybe there's a method where rather than an index array, maybe I can ask document.cookie, maybe if I pass it a number, it's going to give me that particular thing. No, type error. Document.cookie is not a function. Wonderful error message. I was trying to use it as a function. It's telling me not a function. Your syntax is fine, but you're misunderstanding what's going on here. Excellent information. So what is a document.cookie? It's a string, type of, and then in parentheses, whatever you're asking about will tell you what kind of object you're dealing with here. So cookie is a string. So what do I do? What if I want to break this up and I'm only interested in, say, the session ID, which is honestly probably the most interesting one here, even though my location is the thing I've blacked out for you. How do you do that? Well, you can do that. There's a function for the string class called split. And you pass it a string that is the separator, the thing you want to separate the string on. So if you think you have like comma separated values, you might pass it a comma. Here we have a semicolon. These are separated by semicolons. They're actually, if you look closely, they're separated by a semicolon and a space. Little things like this seem like who cares, but little things like this is where security problems fall all the time. I think that this thing is 12 characters long, but it's actually 13, something like that. Those are things where we find strange behaviors. We find assumptions that the developers made don't hold sometimes. So we can split that, and then we can use that prototypal inheritance thing we talked about before, and we can take the second item out of this. These are zero-based indexes. So 0 would be GeoIP, 1 would be network pros limit, 2 would be VEEC ID. So you can still treat this as an array, but you have to make it an array first because it's just a string. So that's cookies. Another sensitive area is DOM storage, and this is a big deal. So cookies is how we've done authentication and how we've done keeping session state, keeping state over stateless protocols like HTTP since the beginning. When we've moved to API-based applications, we've got session storage and DOM storage and local storage. These are more flexible than a cookie. But you have to go looking for them. There's no place in HTTP where you're going to see something labeled as having come from local storage or session storage. So you have to go looking for them. And this is a great use for the developer tools. Look in the storage tab after you've been exploring the application for a while. Always go check in the storage tab and look at all of these things. Look at the cache storage, look at cookies, IndexedDB, look at all these things and see what's being stored. Why? Same reason we talked about before. If the developer is saying, hey, web browser, remember this information, it's because that information is useful for something. And you would like to know as a tester, what information are you storing that's useful, and what use is each bit of information put to? A lot of it's not going to be useful. A lot of it is just going to be for functionality that doesn't have a security implication, or like I said before, it's going to have things sorted in a particular way, or that it's going to say, oh, use dark mode for me. Things like that. They're not super interesting, but you need to know that before you can ignore them. You need to know that they're not interesting before you can ignore them. So the way you pull things out of local storage is with the local storage object, you use the method called getItem, and you pass it the key or the name of whatever it is that's stored in the local storage for that domain. Now look at this one. This one's weird. And I almost wanted to find a different one because the syntax of this was weird. And then I thought, you know what? Actually, this is good. So the name of this is that those three strings separated by pipe characters. Those aren't special characters. That's the name, including the pipes. I'm very curious about that. Why would you have a name like that? That's a strange name. So if I was actually testing this application, I would dig deeper into this and try to figure out what's going on here. Why do you have these names? What if I put them in a different order? What if instead of global buckets, I said local buckets? Is there something else I could do here to pull those out? Anyway, if you want to pull something out, local storage.getItem and give the name. And the response here you see in the bottom of the console is what? What is that? Some of you may recognize that as JSON data, and you're not wrong, but around the JSON data, we have apostrophes or single quote characters. So what you actually have here in terms of how JavaScript interprets that is a string. The string does contain JSON, but you can't use any JSON stuff on it until you convert it. You need to cast it or have it coerced into that particular value. So it is JSON. You're right about that. But the data type is string right now. So you may be thinking, okay, that's great, but how do I know the names of things that are stored in there if I'm trying to get access to something else, or I want an attack here? Maybe there's an item that's stored in there that has some value to me, but it's stored by a different domain. I've got cross-site scripting on that domain so I can run scripts, but I don't know the name they use. They randomize the name each time. Am I out of luck? What if you don't know the name of the key? What if you want to pull something out of local storage, but you don't know the name that the developers gave it? A couple things you can do. Local storage.key0. This is a function call, and you can tell that because of the parentheses. Local storage.key1, also a function call, not array indexing. That would be square brackets. This is a function call. This will give you the 0th key and the first key. So the index, zero-based indexes again. Local storage.length will tell you how many there are. So you can use this to create one of those loops we were talking about. You can do a grandpa loop here. For I equals 0, I is less than local storage.length, I plus plus, log that key. So that gives you the names of everything. If you want to do it in a way that JavaScript developers will respect you more. The bottom one is a better way of doing the same thing. I say better. I don't know if it's better. It's more JavaScripty. It has the arrow operator. Anytime you can use the arrow operator, JavaScript people will trust you more. Use the arrow operator whenever you can. If you want to log the keys and the values, you just have to dereference that key using the same kind of loop we had before. You can get all those things dumped to the console. Now, having said all that, I hope you followed that, and I hope that made sense. But this is where I was talking a little bit in the pre-show that sometimes digging into stuff to teach it gives you a new insight and new views of things. Is there an easier way? We've gone through all this stuff. That's a lot of typing to do. What if I didn't want to type that much? What if I was lazy? What if I was a human and I was lazy because humans are lazy? What else might I do? Look, console.table local storage. So two things I'm showing you here. One, the local storage object can be dumped directly to the console. And two, console.log is not the only console function you can call. For this one, console.log and console.table will give you similar output. But console.table is going to do what you think it's going to do. If you have something that is two-dimensional, rows and columns, it's going to dump it to the console as rows and columns. Easier to read. So read these things. Read the documentation for the console object and see what you can do with it. All right, we're about to wrap up with a cool thing here. So I like pipelines. I like on like Bash pipelines. Nothing impresses me more. Sadly, I still find it impressive when there's a big long pipeline of commands that take some big chunk of data and pull out just the important thing. It's always impressive to me when that happens. Not always practical, but it's impressive. It's one of the things that motivates me to get better at what I'm doing. So let's take a look at this. There's a few things chained together, functions we haven't talked about yet. So we're going to use local storage.getItem, and then we're going to pass that to the function called json.parse. So now that thing that was a string is a JSON object. And now I can index into that using the dot notation. So inside that JSON object, there's a key called val. So if I just append .val at the end, I'm going to extract the value for that particular thing. Now it's a string again, but that's what I wanted, was a string. I just wanted to know what was the val property in this particular thing in local storage. Kind of cool. A couple more functions, and then I'm going to give you one more thing to do. Split, we talked about split. Split breaks up a string based on a character. So 1, 2, 3 dot split on commas gives me an array of those three values. And then array indexing is a thing. Array indexing is you just put at the end of an array, when you're naming an array, you just put in square brackets, you put a number, and that will dereference that one particular item in the array. And then there's a function called A to B, which is base 64 decoding. Obviously, like what else would you call that? A to B. The inverse is B to A. That's the thing we're going to use in a minute. And then json.parse, we just saw that on the last slide. And then dot notation, which we also saw on the last slide. We can use those three things to all at once. If there's a JSON web token, my favorite thing ever in web apps, in local storage that we've discovered the name of, we can extract and decompose that in a single statement. And I'm going to walk you through that. So if you want to do this with me in your own console, awesome, please do. If you just want to listen to, that's fine. But to play along, you're going to need a JSON web token. So go to jwt.io and it will give you one. Copy that to your clipboard and then go into the developer tools, the console, while you're on some page, while you're on example.com. This is a great place to do this one. Type in local storage.setItem and then give it the name JWT and then paste in that JWT so that becomes what is stored in local storage for you. So you'll have local storage.setItem parentheses, JWT in quotes, comma, and then paste your JWT inside of quotes and hit enter. And then you should be able to see that in your local storage thing in developer tools. Now you can play along. So this is all on one slide, but I'm going to walk through it step by step. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to get the item called JWT from local storage. And you see what we get there is what? It's in black. So that means it's a string. There's no syntax highlighting here. It's just a string. We want to split that up on dots because JSON web tokens are delimited with dots. So we're going to add just dot split and then the dot character. And now we see we have syntax coloring again. This is why I'm using Firefox instead of Chrome. Firefox has better syntax highlighting in the console. So we have an array now, and there's three elements in the array, and it shows you what they are. Okay, I want the second one, which, because I'm in a programming language, the second one is indexed by number one, zero-based array. So if I want the second thing, I give it a one. And that gives me, again, a string that is the second element from that array. And now I want to base64 decode that, because that's how things are encoded in JSON Web Tokens. So I'm going to say A to B, and I'm going to wrap my previous statement in parentheses. And now I have a string again. Remember, we saw this a couple slides ago. It's just a string. It's a black. It's just a string. I need that to be treated as JSON. So now I'm going to put JSON.parse and wrap my previous command in that. Now I have an object, which is the JWT. And now I want the thing called name. Now, maybe I didn't know what was in this until this point. I recognized it was a JWT, but I didn't know what was interesting about it yet. By the time I've run this JSON parse command, it's going to show me what's inside the claims of that JSON Web Token. And now I see the name is there, and that gets my attention. I want that name. So now I just add dot notation, dot name, and I get the name. Did you get that? Did anybody play along and make that work? I hope somebody played along and made that work. If not, do it now. Do it after the class. This is the end. There are some more slides. I tend to put too many slides in my talks, so I put a few slides at the end of this one. So it's bonus material now because I've used up all my time. But I'm here for questions. If you have any questions, Zach maybe could pop back in. And if Zach's got some questions he could feed me, that would be awesome. I can't keep track of the Discord while I'm talking all at the same time.
Yeah, no, thank you very much. We appreciate your time and you sharing your knowledge as always. It's fantastic, man. If you guys want to check out more from BB, he is going to be doing his modern web app pen testing class in Denver at Wild West Hack and Fest Mile High in February. So definitely check that out if you want to learn more from him, or you could even get access to all of BB's classes with our Black Friday sale. Put a link for that in the chat as well. So if you are interested, please go and check those out. But if you do have questions, you can put them in the chat and we will go over them. There were a few queued up. One was, do you play guitar?
Do I play guitar? I own some guitars.
You own some guitars.
I inherited one and I bought one, and one day I would like to be able to play guitar.
I would too. I feel you on that.
Yeah. Good idea.
There was a question when you were talking about DOM storage. How do you know with DOM storage that it is the key you are looking for?
How do you know it's the key you're looking for? Well, you're going to look through whatever is stored in the DOM storage. So DOM storage is local storage, and session storage are both special cases of DOM storage, same thing. So you're going to look at that in your console, not in your console, in the storage tab of the developer tools, and the names will be there. And the names, some of them will just catch your eye. A name might be called username, or it might say JWT, or it might say administrator token, or something silly like that. Those actually happen. So the way you know it's interesting is it caught your attention for some reason. There's nothing inherent about them. It's just if you were a developer and you gave something that name, what would you use it for? Is there some curious, interesting security implication for that?
Thank you. Shellcode asks, are there any tricks for deobfuscating JavaScript? They find a lot of web apps and websites have minified JS code and does not look nice.
Right. Isn't that annoying? Yeah. So here's actually a wonderful use for AI. If it's allowed, you got to be careful when you're dealing with customer data. If you can put your customer data into ChatGPT or Perplexity AI or one of these other models and ask it to deobfuscate it for you, sometimes it will. Sometimes it'll do a very good job of that. I would be especially cautious doing that if you're testing an internal application, something that's only not available on the internet. But I think that if it's something available on the internet that people can register their own accounts for, that JavaScript has already been released to the world. So there's probably little risk in you feeding it to an AI to get information out of it. Still, I would ask the customer just to make sure. But that's probably the best way these days, is feed it to an LLM and say, hey, what does this JavaScript do? And paste it in. Then it will it'll often give you good answers.
This one isn't a question, but I did want to share the feedback with you. It's anonymous attendee, and they just wanted to say that BB King is a legend, and they're surprised you don't have any gray hair. But they took your class years ago in Sparks, Nevada, and first learned about JWTs. There are very few web app testers I follow, and he's one of them. So
Awesome.
great.
Nevada was fun. Yeah, that we did Reno. Was it in Reno? We had a Wild West Hackin' Fest out in Reno once. That was fun. Cool. Well, I'm glad you're back. Thanks for coming in.
Do you cover any of this in your class, in any of your classes?
This is actually material from the class I'm teaching in Denver, but expanded on. So what's in class is less than what you got right now. We dove a whole lot deeper into it here than we do in class. Now I may update the class to include some of this stuff, but
I was going to say, now you can just include this as a resource, an additional link for that section. So here's a webcast that I did that breaks it down even further.
For sure.
That's
yeah.
perfect. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
But and then Maho's asking, it's time again for their semi-regular. Has enough content changed in this class since I last took it that I should consider taking it again? And it's been 5 years since they've taken the class. I would imagine.
Yeah, this one I actually just finished re-recording it like last week, so it has been freshly updated. It's not available yet. We need to make it look a little more professional, like clean up all the video, but that should be available in the on-demand platform soon-ish. And definitely what I'm doing in Denver is it's very similar. It's been updated with changes to technologies and changes to the application since then. The topics are largely the same, but the coverage is updated. Yeah.
Awesome. Then Dave said they had to step away, but sorry if you already covered this, but what can you do with JavaScript map files when they're exposed?
JavaScript map files that are exposed. These will help you make sense of the scripts. This is related to the minifying thing we talked about a minute ago. So when scripts are minified, that means that the variable names that developers use get shrunk into meaningless terms. White space is minimized. The whole point of minification, which is the word, is to make the script take up fewer bytes so that it transmits over the network faster. So it's still logically the same, but it's just not possible for a human to make sense of it because the variable names don't mean anything. The function names don't mean anything. So those map files help to map it back to meaningful terms, things that you can make more sense of. So that's another one you could feed to AI. Give it those files and say, hey, can you make some sense of this for me? Unmap this.
Thank you, sir. And just a reminder, if y'all have any questions, you can put them in the Zoom chat or you can put them in Discord. And we have a few minutes left, so please get those questions put in if you do have them. And I will be announcing our CTF. So if you were paying attention to the webcast today, then our CTF today might be a little bit of a challenge for you. Or if you were paying close attention, taking notes, you might be able to breeze through it pretty quickly. But you will need access to our Webcast CTF channel in Discord. So I'm going to put a link for the Webcast CTF chat in the Discord. If you cannot access that, let me know, and I will make sure that you get access to it so you can access the CTF for today. And here's a question from Dave. Have you ever found AI to be horribly wrong when de-obfuscating?
Can I answer the first question first? Have I ever found AI to be horribly wrong? Yes, it's always horribly wrong. Sometimes it gives you good ideas, though. In de-obfuscating, let me think. I'm not sure that I've seen it be wrong. And at the same time, I'm not sure that I would know because I don't have the source to know when I'm doing the test that I'm doing. I don't work that closely with most of the development teams. But my sense is that it would either give you something useful or it would just fail. It might just say, I can't make sense of this, which it sometimes does. Sometimes the syntax is so messed up that the AI or the JavaScript beautifier, which you might use also to try to make sense of it, has trouble parsing. But I can't imagine that it would come up with something that is coherent but wrong. Good question.
Do you think, Herbert's asking, do you think JavaScript could be phased out in the future? If so, what would it be replaced with?
Oh my goodness, would JavaScript be phased out? I think we're too far down the road. It's spreading everywhere. It's becoming in places where it was never intended to be. I like to say that JavaScript is like the USB of programming because USB is universal serial bus, right? It's a way to transfer digital data back and forth. But what do we use it for most often now? Powering things. We use it as a source of power. That's not what it's meant for. Same thing with JavaScript. JavaScript was never meant to do all the things that it does right now, but it does. We have entire applications built in JavaScript. There are so many things. Discord. If you have Discord installed locally, it's all a JavaScript application. It's everywhere. So you might want things to be differently. You might want to use more. I don't know. I'll just say different languages for those types of things. But I think we are where we are, and it's just going to keep going this way. JavaScript, I don't think, is going anywhere.
Yeah. Womp womp.
Right. Right. It works. It's good enough.
There's a great one from Jay Hillman. Not a question, but I want to share it with you. They sincerely appreciate you and the training, BB. The first session they caught of yours covered Burp Suite, and they use the skills they learned in that class all the time. And what's even better is they now have the honor of teaching others what you so graciously taught them. And sometimes they even look like how they know what they're talking about, and they just wanted to say thank you. And
that's wonderful. That's the best thing ever is when something that I did was useful enough for you to make it useful for other people too. Thank you for doing that. That's fantastic. I love it.
Man, all the stuff you do is useful, man. I genuinely mean that. I'm not just like blowing smoke. I think all the all the content and things that you've put out have they always come from such a genuine place, and I think you just like, I don't know what the word is I'm looking for, but just, like put that out there, right? It's just like you are just one of the most genuine people I've ever met, and to hear you teach is truly an honor because it's such an entertaining time. It really is, and I've had that feedback from everybody I think who's taken your class, because when you were in Deadwood, I literally talked to everybody in that class, afterwards, and everybody is just like BB is amazing, and I just love hearing that, and I'll always share that. I just
love this stuff. It's so much fun. I've been doing it for like 2008 I started, so a long time. It's just so much fun. There's so much to it. It all makes sense if you get at it the right way. Sometimes it takes more effort than you might hope, but
and now you are helping new teachers, find their way, which is
what
even
could be better.
cooler.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I love that as well. Here's a question, sorry, from Joseph. Is forensic data gathered by AI, will it hold up if forensic data is gathered by AI, will it hold up in court?
Will it hold up in court? Well, I can tell you one thing for sure. I am not a lawyer, nor am I a judge. But I think the more AI that's used in court proceedings, the worse off we're going to be as humanity. I'm always, this in teaching also, I talk about this. You want to go to like the raw data. You want to go to the source of things. When you're writing a report and you're talking about a vulnerability you found, you don't want to say, oh, look, the scanner told me, and here's the result. The scanner says, look, there's cross-site scripting somewhere. No, you want to show, here's the payload I used. Here's where it went. Here's the response that came. Here's how I know that it worked. You want to show that actual source, that primary sources is what you want. You don't want summary information. So I'm a big fan of people doing the work themselves and doing their own understanding, because that's better.
Eric's asking, does the corp world see the value in good pen testing? %5 seems like some don't, or they see it as a cost and offshore it, and the quality is very poor.
Well, I don't think it's that different from other things. That people have different values and different goals, and they place a different amount of value on different things. So you might think that when I buy a car, I want a car that's got great engineering and super reliability, and maintenance is easy. I can do my own maintenance. Maybe that's what you want in a car. So that's a valuable car to you. And maybe somebody else just wants a car to get to the grocery store twice a week. So they just want something that's cheap and isn't going to break down. So those are both valid cars and both valid reasons for wanting those cars. And there's a market for both of those. So there are organizations that do want a good pen test, and to me, a good pen test is one that like goes as deep as it can and is conducted in coordination with the owner of the systems involved, so that you're getting the most visibility, really finding whatever problems are actually there so they can be fixed. An organization that wants to have a secure environment is going to find a good pen testing organization to support them in that. An organization that wants to just check the compliance box and say, yeah, we did a pen test, they're going to find those pen test puppy mills who will just do that for them. They'll run Nessus and they'll say, hey, we did a pen test, look, and they'll just reformat the Nessus reports. So of course, I think that second thing is terrible. And I don't think that anybody should do that. I think that's very bad. That's the wrong way to do security. But there are groups out there that do that. So find yourself the other kind of groups. Find yourself the good kind of group that wants to do it right, and ally yourself with those, and you'll have a much more satisfying career.
Excellent advice, man. I love it. I think that's all the questions that I see. So I just put the link to this week's CTF in the Webcast CTF chat. So I'll add another link in the main Discord live chat for Webcast CTFs. If you don't have access to that, just ping me. Please ping me. Don't like DM me because I don't often see those just because my Discord settings are. Just reply back to that and I will make sure that you get access to the Webcast CTFs chat. You have until next Monday to submit your answers and we'll be picking 2 winners. One winner will win full access to our anti-siphon training catalog. So that's all of our classes. And the other winner will be able to pick 1 class of their choice. But BB, it's been an absolute pleasure having you here. If y'all want to check out more of BB, check him out in Denver coming up in February. We'll be doing the modern web app pen testing class there. It will be a lot of fun. I'll be there. I hope to see you there. And don't forget, our Black Friday sale is still going on, so you can access all of our classes. And if you want to find out more that we're doing, you can always go to poweredbybhs.com and I'll show you all of our events that we have coming up. But until next week with Troy Wojawoda, which I don't think I put a link for that. I don't know. I think I did earlier,
Troy,
but we'll put another one. Troy is doing network and endpoint security.
All right.
Yeah.
Troy's good. I like Troy's stuff.
Yeah, Troy's great, and I love saying his name. That's always fun.
Isn't it fun?
It is. It's so fun. All right, BB, do you have any parting words that you would like to leave everybody with today?
I don't know. Just thank you for being here. You could have done anything with this time, and I appreciate that you spent it with me. And I hope that it was valuable for you. There's a couple of extra slides we didn't get to. So if you download the slides, there's some stuff at the end. If you want to pick on JavaScript in a more educated way, I give you a few more slides to do that, to just beat up on JavaScript. Nothing critical in there, just a little bit of fun.
Love it. And the slides can be found on Zoom under the resources link, and they also can be found in Discord under our slides resources channel. So if you need to access those, there's where you can find them. I hope you all have a great week, and we will see you all next week. Thank you all for being here. Take care. Kill it with fire, Ryan.
Thanks.